Well, hello and welcome to my situtery. I've shuggled the camera around a bit today so that you can see these glorious, poor thing, glorious tulips that I have here. These are kind of historic tulips, and that's why I've got them all sheltered in here and nice and kind of things. They're gorgeous. So today I'm going to actually make this into a 3-part video. And that is because here we are, right at the beginning of May. I'm recording this on Wednesday. It's early afternoon on Wednesday, the 30th of April. And I'm just kind of getting ready for May. It's May Day tomorrow. It'll have been yesterday when you're watching this. And it's such an important part of the year. May is that month where everything seems to increase and kind of go a little bit mad in Scotland. You can almost see things growing day by day by day because we've hit the period where we've got really long days. Obviously for the next 6 weeks we'll have really long days, and it means all the plants grow like anything. So it is my busiest month of the year. Everything needs done in the garden. Everything needs done harvesting. There's a lot of work actually in teaching, and I've got other courses that are going on and so on. So there's quite a lot of recording and admin as well, and prepping for the year ahead. So what I thought is I would talk a little bit about how I deal with that without kind of collapsing. And then I'll show you a bit of the garden, and I'll take you down to the studio and show you what I'm doing down there at the moment. So first of all, the dangers of May for me. So in the garden, within a week, we seem to go from the garden looking relatively neat. It's still very, very cold at night. It's that keeps the weeds down. I get a chance to get it all looking quite neat. And then one day I wake up and the whole thing is covered in weeds again. And it looks very overwhelming, and it looks very daunting. And in the past, I have begun to panic about that because my stamina isn't great, and I can manage about an hour's work in the garden before I need to go and sit down and do something else. And that's not very much in a garden that is our size. So in the past, I used to get so overwhelmed that I didn't even do that hour. I would just look at it and think, I can't solve it all now, so I'll just walk away and not do any of it. And that's something that I have had to kind of address in myself. Same thing with the garden is this time where you get these beautiful newly grown leaves, where you've got that brightness before they go dull and dusty. That is where the best dye colour is. So if I harvest, for example, Sweet Sicily at the moment, when it's all just fresh and soft and floppy, it gives me a really bright, slightly greenish yellow. It's almost neon. If I wait another couple of months, it will still give me a nice yellow, but it won't have that kind of internal, almost as though it's been lit up from inside. And the reason that is important is, one, it gives it this really nice bright yellow that is a bit like weld but slightly more green. But secondly, I can make a nice proper green by modifying it with iron, and it gives a lovely glowing green in contrast to a lot of the very dull soft greens that I have. I'll show you them both when I go down to the studio with this. Hawthorn I need to be collecting now. Really, lots of the things, the tree leaves, like plum leaves and things, they would be so much better if I can collect them now. And again, in the past, I would have gone, oh my goodness, there's all this, there's all that. I should be going out and looking for bog myrtle. What is it? I should be collecting heather. Where are the nearest hawthorn and gorse and all of these kinds of things. Not tying it at all to what are my capabilities, and not setting any intentions or priorities. And what would happen in May? Now, May's also my birthday month, and it's quite an emotional month for me because about 15, 16 years ago, I was told that I was likely to be dead within 10 years. So clearly that was not right. And it was really just a very, very arrogant, stupid doctor that put that into my head. But it means that when my birthday comes round, I'm kind of like, yes, another year, that's one up for you. And then I have a tendency to crash. So I always have this emotional kind of underlay in May. But when I add on to that an attempt to keep up with all of the harvest and abundance and keeping the garden looking nice, and this feeling that the months are going too fast and that the year is almost halfway through, and all of this kind of self-talk that isn't useful, self-talk about being too busy and having too little time. It's never ever helpful. It never increases your time or makes you calmer. It's just it's really destructive. So what I needed to do was to just set intentions and realize that this is not it. If I don't manage to get hawthorn leaves into the dye pot and I don't have hawthorn dyed threads, it's not a disaster. If there are weeds in the paths in the garden, it's not a disaster. It's the point of living is living. It's not completing a never-ending to-do list. So I will now take you to the garden where you'll be able to see everything, and I'll show you some of the things that I do intend to get done over the next few days. Right, so here we are in the garden, and to be honest, from where you are there on the other side of my phone, it probably looks fine to you because you're far enough away. And I think that's also quite a lesson, that if I brought somebody in here and just walked them past the garden, they would think it was absolutely amazing. But because I'm in it, and because it's mine, and because I'm really protective of the garden, like I would be a child, it's a creation, I kind of see all of its faults and all the things that are undone. All I have to do is to try and take that filter off. So you can see, I'm going to show you the things I have done. Sure. I have planted my sweet peas. Now, this is the first year for 20 years maybe that I have not grown my own sweet peas from seed. The reason for that is, one, I was going to be in Naples, and to get somebody else to look after plants for you it's a bit of an ask. It's a bit of a responsibility. Ewan wasn't going to be here all the time either, and I decided that I would just not plant them in the autumn, and I wasn't there to plant them in the spring. So instead I spent £40, which is a lot of money, but cheaper than getting somebody to come in and check my seedlings, on buying some very good sweet pea seedlings from Sarah Raven, which is a company, and they sell lots of very expensive, very nicely coloured seedlings. And then when I got back from Naples, they arrived about 5 or 6 days later, and I planted them into deep pots like this. And now here they are romping away, and I've got them. They'll cover that tunnel that you can maybe see in the background, and also I have some left over for this little teepee. So I will have my sweet peas in unusual colours, which is what I was wanting, highly scented varieties, which is what I was wanting, and I didn't need to stress about how they were faring over the winter and while I was away. So that's one of these things. And again, it comes up against this, yes, Jane, but you could have done it for free, because I had seeds that I'd saved from last year. You could have done it for free, where it wouldn't have got done. Or I could spend £40 and it got done. And sweet peas are important enough to me, because I fill the house with them and I give them away, and their centrepiece to the garden is important enough to spend the £40. So then behind that you can see some self-sown poppies. They're beautiful poppy. I think it's maybe Norwegian or Spanish, or I know they're very different. I can't remember where the poppy comes from. But it comes out all year in this lovely tangerine colour. And these are self-sown. And then behind them we've got 3 hoops, and this is seedlings beginning to go out into the garden. And I use like fiberglass hoops, and then on top of that Enviromesh. Now obviously Enviromesh is plastic, and I have had these same bits for now I think 12 years. The ones that are paler, which I think is this bit here, have been in the tunnel. What I would used to do was I would put the Enviromesh over the bed and then the tunnel, and that actually gave me a really good overwintering situation. But now they're all outside, and what it does is it keeps the garden frost free from the beginning of May. It, more importantly, I think, keeps the wind off them, off the seedlings, and they grow really fast. So under there I've got some courgettes, I have some salad, because you say I was going to be growing my own food this year, and then I have things like Dyer's chamomile and hoppy sunflowers and so on, just so that although they get hardened off before they come in here, just to give them a little bit more protection. Again, you can see there's not masses and masses of plants in there. I think I'm going to have 20 sunflowers. Some of them will be in the tunnel just to see what the difference is. I've got maybe 12 Dyer's chamomile out here. I'll have the same in the tunnel. You know, so it's not big amounts. And what I always have to do to try and stop this overdoing, this crashing, is to rein in the part of me that always wants to scale things, that goes, oh, you're dyeing 20 skeins of thread, why don't you dye 200? Because then you could easily sell the 200 with a bit of marketing, and you would make so much more money. And yes, I would make more money, but I would be living less life. And that's the decision that I make. Anyway, I'll take you round the garden. So one thing that you can certainly see with the garden is that we have a lot of forget-me-nots, a lot of forget-me-nots at the moment. And it's been quite interesting that they're all self-sown. And there are 2 different varieties here. There's one that I used to grow as a cut flower, which is called Blue Angel, which is this one that's next to the sweet peas, and it's much darker. And the flowers are slightly bigger, and the stems are long enough if you cut them to the ground to put into bouquets, and it's rather beautiful. But then some of the ones that have self-sown are paler. Honestly, now looking at this photo, it is quite ridiculous how much I've got. But I'm growing some of these to press because they press beautifully on the stems. They press beautifully, and I want to see about maybe doing some card kits and so on. So if I don't press them now, I wouldn't have the material. But also they make a really nice string. This is obviously not a commercial enterprise. They make a really lovely cordage if dried. So I thought, well, when I pull them all out, I'll be making cordage. But then on in an audiobook, which I'll leave the links, it's Adam Nicholson's book, Bird School, there was a thing about how willow warblers eat the seeds of forget-me-nots. So I thought, well, that would be fine, having all of these forget-me-nots. I have willow warblers. In fact, that might be a willow warbler that you can hear in the background. They can just feast on them, which would be rather wonderful. But anyway, you can see alongside the glorious forget-me-nots, this is the state of the paths. This is some dock, which is meant to be a salad leaf and is actually really horrible as a salad leaf, but took over my entire garden. And then along here, past where you can see all the salad in the tubs, I've got my tulips and the rhubarb and lupins and all kinds of things. And then last night, you can see, this is a very typical Jane gardening thing, right? So last night, while listening to a Zoom, I was gardening, and it was a very good Zoom. It was Olia Hercules reading her new book. But there I am. I have abandoned my bucket of weeds, but even worse, unfinished things, there are my gloves. Very, very unfinished. And then the other place that I was weeding, because I was dotting all over the place, was these dye plants here, whose name I can't remember offhand, but we'll put the text up on the thing, had been choked with willow herb. So you can see I've just been excavating them. But, you know, this is the real state of the back of the plot. And as I say, I could get really, really upset, try and do something about it, and then crash. So I think I'll now take you down to the studio. So here we are in the studio, and the whole place smells aniseedy because I have been dyeing threads with Sweet Sicily. And I said that I would show you the difference. So this is Sweet Sicily. You can see it's really, really bright, amazingly vibrant yellow, which you can only get at this time of year. And then when I put it with iron, it turns to a really nice glowing green. And I just love these colours. And there is this feeling that I have, nobody else is batting down, that I don't need to waste it at all. So I have that. Then I have the issue of trying not to waste things. So if I dye with Sweet Sicily, or this is a fig that I have, some avocado that I'm doing for a course that I'll mention in a minute. If I have these pots of dye stuff and I dye that and then that's me finished, what do I do with the rest? And there is this kind of feeling of I don't want to waste it. And, to some extent, that is just ridiculous, because I wouldn't have the same problem up at the house if I had, say, cooked carrots in water of getting rid of the water. That would not be a problem. But somehow, because I think of the colour as precious, I don't want to waste any. But equally, I don't want to use it to just dye paler and paler threads or amass a whole load of half-dyed things. So one of the things that I have been doing is in each of my dye pots, I will put some rag paper. This is khadi paper. And I'm getting lots and lots of different colours. And I think I'll just build that up over the season. But you can tell, you know, I mean, obviously, I'm going to put the paper in the dye pot and then tend it and then come back and take it out and hang it to dry and all of these kinds of things. So it's not exactly a no work solution, but equally, look at that. Gorgeous, gorgeous colours. And then because I want other people to be able to get colours like this, I put together packs of dried plant material. And again, Sweet Sicily, I need to get it at this time of year and I need to get it dehydrated fast. So I'll show you what it looks like in here. Like just leaves in here, all squashed in. Just smells gorgeous. I need to do that in the next week or so to get the potency of the colour there. And alongside all of that kind of dye things, I'm also working on a live workshop that I'm doing next Friday, Friday the 9th, in the Studio Club. And this is all about dyeing with food waste. And it's something that I had kind of not really wanted to do, if I'm honest, because there's a lot on the internet about dyeing with food waste, and a lot of it is nonsensical. Or rather, it will give you colours, but it won't give you good colours. It won't give you kind of it will stand up to light or washing, anything like that. They have a nasty habit of fading from bright to very muddy grey. And I see there's a market for that, and people are putting up, you know, information in good faith, apart from people who Photoshop the colours, which there is quite a lot in the food waste thing. But they're not really teaching people how to properly dye with food waste. So I had kind of been a bit not sure I want to do this. But then in the Studio Club, we're doing this sort of whole couple of months about sustainability. And I thought actually it would be a really good opportunity for me to get over my prejudices, do some proper samples and see what I came up with. And I must say I have completely changed my mind. So these are the samples from the food waste. And this is what I'm going to be showing people how to do next Friday in the Studio Club. If you aren't a Studio Clubber at the moment and you're wanting to kind of just have a workshop, find out about how you dye with food waste, I'll put the details of how you can join us. There's no minimum term. So if you wanted to join for a month, which would be $14.95, and then cancel your membership, you can do that. But obviously, I hope that you stay and become part of our community. So these are all the colours that I got on silk. And then these are the colours on embroidery threads, which you can see. I mean, they are good colours. So I have written all of the tutorials, which are now up in the Studio Club. And it's done so that when we're talking about tea and coffee, I'm also teaching about modifying with iron so that you can change the colours. This is, of course, where having them all in a bundle like this isn't particularly useful, but that's tea with an iron modifier. And where's my tea, just generally? That's there. So you can see that just tea gives this kind of caramelly colour, and then if you add in iron, it darkens and deepens. All of that kind of thing. Then onions, and with onions, show how to do with onions, and then look at what happens if you dye with no mordant, with red onion, which is you get this kind of peachy colour, or if you do it with a mordant, there we go, which is this lovely dark green. Again, you can see how they go together. And then with pomegranate, which is probably this pale yellow. Yeah, it's pomegranate. I show how you can actually get a nice clear yellow by using alkali in your mix. So there's lessons within lessons, I suppose. And then next Friday, what we're going to do is I'm going to shoot all of these plus avocado, because avocado is more complicated, a several step process. So I have all of that, which I'm very excited about. And then, in addition to that, I want to keep my presses full the whole time. So I press flowers from the garden, and there are two categories that I'm interested in. One are things that will work really well with cyanotypes. So here is, actually, you might be able to see it better on the paper if I bring the paper. Snake's head fritillaries. Now, if you use those for cyanotype printing, which is the blue thing which you do in the sun, you get all of these petals and the checker board you can get as well. So I press that kind of thing because, you know, not everybody has access to that. As I mentioned, I pressed forget-me-nots, and I wanted to build up seasonal collections. So lots of spring flowers, summer flowers, and probably autumn leaves. And I've got another collection that is pressed flowers that is for eco-printing, and that is done much later on in the season, sort of end of July through August. But my aim is to keep these presses always going. It takes maybe 3 or 4 weeks to properly dry something, changing the paper every couple of days so that they dry really nicely. They don't go wrinkled, they don't go brown. And that is, you know, quite a job, a lovely job, but quite a job. So I've also really not got to get obsessional about that, so that I can't go, oh, I need to press every snake's head fritillary in the garden and end up with a big range. No, I pressed 30. I could still appreciate the beauty. Bees, other insects could have a good food source, they're nice and early, and people will be able to buy these sets. So you might be able to see quite how much ongoing work, because I mean, like, you know, obviously I've got my threads here, which are technically resting at the moment, but at some point I'm going to have to put them onto skeins and then pack them up, do little labels for them, list them on the website, put them for sale. So if I got it into my head that I had to take advantage of everything, if I can't leave anything on the table, if I have to scale the business, if that is my aim for the business, is to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, you can see how that very quickly becomes overwhelming. So I have to, and particularly in May, when things outside begin to ramp up and become overwhelming, I have to be incredibly intentional so that my hour in the garden, I know exactly what I'm doing for that hour in the garden before I do it. And so today, I'm actually going to be waiting until this evening and planting out seedlings into the polytunnel. It's way too hot at the moment, but I have some black scabious and some tagetes burning embers, which are beautiful plants, but will like the protection of the polytunnel. So that is going to be my hour in the garden. What am I going to be doing down here in the studio? I've just changed over the papers in the tubs of dye. I've put some to dry, so that's one thing that I'm doing. And the next thing that I'm going to be doing is probably some photography down here. Might change the papers in this press. Then I have to think about what am I going to be doing on an admin level or a live events level and that kind of thing. But be realistic with all of them and write them down with a properly estimated time for them. Because my days, like from getting up to going to bed, is about 12 hours. I don't want to be spending all of that 12 hours working. And I probably couldn't anyway. It would probably mean that lack of stamina reduced it down anyway. So I need to be really, really intentional, and I need to get used to leaving stuff on the table and not worrying about that, not feeling that it's a wasted opportunity, or that I'm not being productive enough, or any of these things which somehow get into our heads. Even though every time I have pushed and pushed and pushed my limits to, say, get a whole harvest in, I've ended up with too much and not sold, or it's gone mouldy, or whatever. What I need to do is to be much, much more sensible, intentional, and to keep the joy in my work. Because if it's joyful, I will want to do more of it. So there we are, May. Celebrate the amazing productivity and just energy of May. I put actually in the Studio Club forum, if there's any Studio Clubbers watching, I've put a little guided meditation there about just the energy of this time of year. So you can go and check that out. And otherwise, I'm going to say bye-bye, get on with some of the things that I need to do, and I shall see you next Friday. Bye-bye.